Okay, here we go. The part I would not tease off the top. Part 4. Has the increase in man butt made things better or worse? Let me explain. Instead of creating more well-rounded characters of all kinds, media, in its infinite wisdom, just decides to have Daredevil do the walk of shame in his yellow costume in She-Hulk and thought that was going to make it all better. You know, we all know, well, Eileen knows my immediate reaction to the flying Lestat ass in Interview with the Vampire. I could handle the butt monsters in Doom Patrol. That made sense to me. But impaling Louis by flying Lestat, are they both floating? Is just Lestat floating? If so, I hope he's providing support because Jesus Christ, Louis is not a corn roast. Okay? Like, what? There's just man ass everywhere all of a sudden. And they did have some of this in comics for a while back. I mean, they had the sort of
Nightwing.
gratuitous, well, Nightwing, definitely. Nightwing, whenever, remember when Anita Sarkeesian dropped that strategic butt covering video and everybody who read comics went, Nightwing is right there. That boy's butt has been on full display since the 90s. Okay.
I thought it was the
Possibly
late
sooner.
80s.
I
Dang
think
it.
you are right. I think it was the late 80s, but the butt just got more and more. That first Spider-Man game, I think it was the first Spider-Man they had a white Spider-Man suit
Yes.
and the butt was so like you
It
could
was
see the
Spider-Man.
tailbone. It was like
Oh my
leaving
gosh.
it was shrink wrapped. I put that on. I couldn't play because I kept looking to the side. I was like, oh my, George Takei, full on. But they've just and they have done it in comics. I remember this one scene where they had Wolverine and Cyclops showering together. I'm not sure why,
Was this
but
after the Krakoa event or
I think
before?
before.
It was
But
before.
Oh.
yeah, Wolverine was complaining that he still had bullet fragments in his butt. And the implication was that Colossus was trying to not look too hard at Wolverine's butt, even though he was calling attention to it. And like they've done it in comics. For some odd reason, they love Wolverine's shirt to just fall off. I'm not, it's a run on joke in X-Men 97 that Wolverine always loses his shirt because he did. He always lost his shirt in the original comic. I'm not sure what that was about.
So he
So it's,
was like a Taylor Lautner character in
yeah,
Twilight.
Yes, because
yeah.
he's vaguely animalistic, he has to lose his shirt.
Well, to me, okay, that's a far classier way of framing it, Eileen, than I did. Um, it's just, Hugh Jackman gave up lasagna for 12 weeks for that role. He's using it. That's where I went. But um, Supernatural was sort of the show that I first became aware of gratuitous taking off of shirts because it was a CW show and they were trying to make it for a teenage girl audience. And
Also, Teen Wolf.
it's just sort of spread, right? Every premium cable show, it used to be Hey Boobs Out. I said HBO stood for Hey Boobs Out. Now it's Hey Butt Out. Like there's gonna be a man ass in the first episode somewhere. We might have both, but I mean, House of the Dragon is doing full frontal nudity, and
Yeah,
What?
I, oh yeah, there's a
dang,
scene.
I hate it.
Yeah, well, I kind of liked the scene, but you didn't have to be. He didn't have to be that naked for that long. I did feel bad for the actor because that actor's pretty young,
Yes.
and it lingered longer than it had to. And okay, it was a bit of motivation for why things took the turn that they did, in terms of him trying to kill his brother. And I am partial to that character. I very much like his eye patch, but you know, was that much nudity not even necessary? Did it make the scene better? I don't know.
That's what I thought of for Zack Snyder's Twilight of the Gods. I've never
Ah.
been so tired of nudity in my life. And I'm just like, listen, I've seen hentai, man. That's just like every episode. But for this, I can't deal with it. I can't. I don't care. I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like we're completely penis averse. I sorry to bring this up, Eileen, because I know that Nosferatu is a thing. It's like you're floating butts. But I thought the use of, well, as Eileen's family termed it, vampire chorizo, worked in that one because it was supposed to be a horrific monster reveal. And so for the guys who were pretending to be too cool for the whole thing, like, oh yeah, monster, which was not the point of the scene, they got a horrific monster reveal that they didn't see coming in the form of what was between, who was that? Alexander Skarsgård, Stellan Skarsgård? What are the Skarsgårds?
The one that is Pennywise?
Right. There was no
Billy?
guard on that Scars.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But it's a great movie and it's a good scene and it was deliberate. And that's when, the nudity in A History of Violence, which is a comic book adaptation movie with Viggo Mortensen and Maria Bello, directed by David Cronenberg. Those make sense to me. But throwing in the guys having sex sometimes with each other, I don't want to bias this, so I'll let Bianca and then Eileen go first, and then I'll give my thoughts. But do you think that this is things getting better, worse, about the same? What do you think about the changes?
Honestly, from what I've seen, especially in the DC comic stuff, where anytime, they want to talk about butts or whatever, Nightwing pops up in every single conversation.
I think he's wearing a dance belt so he doesn't pop up. Thank you very much.
It's like so much of these conversations are not in good faith. It's just been bad take after bad take with this stuff using Nightwing as an example. And I'm like, okay, I feel like we're not improving. I feel like in a way we are actually getting worse, and that maybe people should rather not talk about it or just keep on learning between, I don't know, the sexualizations, the butts, and all that stuff, not for just women, but for men too.
I remember when Tarantula sexually assaulted him and people freaked out. That was a long time ago, right? Like that was before anybody did that. They ran Devin Grayson out of comics for that one.
Just ingrained in my brain.
Like, and that was still called force to penetrate back then, but it was still assault. Like he was drugged.
Oh, and she met Devin Grayson, like when she was confronted about it, she was like, no. It wasn't rape. It was just not consensual. And everybody was like, what?
Was. Yeah, it was completely sexual assault, but people freaked out. And it's like, I remember at the time going, name me a DC Comics woman character who has not been raped at least once in some continuity. It is really fucking hard.
Vixen, because nobody ever writes about her anyway. Boom, I got it.
Yeah. See, there you go. Bianca to the rescue. But you know what I mean? Catwoman, yep. Wonder Woman, all the Amazons, all of them. Power Girl does have, a non-con storyline. Is just one after the other, after the other, after the other. I mean, they
that
even
canceled Wonder Woman script, which was written as a joke, but like they were like considering it, and I'm like, whoa! I just,
It's one of those things where you can't just flip the trope and have it work, and yeah, they are. I mean, I found a lot of that John Kent Superman stuff really gratuitous because they're supposed to be 17-year-old boys,
Yeah, and I initially didn't have a problem with how things were portrayed in the entire book until I started thinking about it when we had our conversation
Yeah.
about it before. And I'm now like thinking about it and I'm like, oh, that's right. There's
It's like
17.
when they started Ultimate X-Men and Jean Grey was supposed to be 16
Oh,
Yeah.
and then she banged Logan and all of a sudden she was 18.
yes.
Oops, like the fact that they have to have the fan base go, guys, that's statutory, like they're in essentially New York. That's not legal. Whoops. You know,
Ayla was right. We gotta get rid of these people.
yeah, but Eileen, what do you think about, not really focusing on the characterizations, just throwing in more, vampire chorizo and man ass?
Okay, I feel vampire chorizo needs some context in this. Uh, I am a huge fan of gothic romance, and I'm the only one in my family. I'm always standing for gothic romance to my family, and they are never good fans. Nosferatu is the first time that I actually got my aunt and several other women in my family to come with me to the theater. And the one movie we want to see is the one that has like a blink and you'll miss it full frontal of the vampire. And of course, my family thinks, oh, so this is why you like vampire movies.
Oh
This is
God.
the vampire chorizo. So that was the context. They are not really in the genre. They were making fun of me. It was all in good faith. But
But vampire chorizo has stuck.
yeah, it has stuck. It's now the vampire chorizo movie, and I'm never going to leave it down. Uh, are things better with bots and dongs and whatever? Not really. Like Bianca said, these these kind of shows and these kind of talks aren't being made in good faith. Uh, Back in the early 2000s, 2010s, when with the Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff, when women started to be more outspoken about, hey, these kinds of portrayals of women in media, they make me uncomfortable. It's not the character being sexy, it's the character being fetishized, and there's a difference. It's not that we're against women being sexy or having big boobs. It's that we don't like it when it's done specifically in this particular way.
Mhm.
The defense was immediately, well, Nightwing does it. Here he is. Here's Nightwing with his
Yeah.
butt off, or here's so and so with his Captain America with his big muscles, or Wolverine without a shirt. And okay, but that is not the same thing, and you know it.
Except do they know it? I really think that comics is sort of split between the guys who are like, well, women just aren't visually stimulated. Ask Eileen's family and the vampire chorizo, right? Um, but women aren't visually stimulated. Science, it's not true. It's very outdated science.
Yes.
But then there's the others who think, fine, we're doing the same thing. Are you happy now? And that's
Yes,
not,
precisely.
yeah, yeah,
That is my point. It's not made to provide alternatives. It's made basically out of spite.
yeah.
Like these people will defend fetishize, it's not sexual, it's fetishize portrayals of women so much that they will rather fetishize men the same way rather than address the problem.
And
And so
yeah,
like you said, I believe it was Lady Bits the first time that I heard you say it.
mhm,
If it's not okay to do to a woman, it's not okay to do to a guy.
yeah, yeah. And this idea that it's somehow different. when it's done to a man because men have power in society. That is bullshit. You know,
Yes.
it just because men have been president in the US and women haven't doesn't mean an individual guy gives up his right to bodily autonomy.
I think
Yes.
Captain America from She-Hulk was a really good example of how
Mhm.
you spoke about this before, where in the first couple of episodes, uh, Jennifer is constantly talking about on whether he had sex or not, or if he
Yeah.
died a virgin, or and then she's ta constantly talking about his butt. And this man is dead.
Yeah.
And I'm just, and even I'm just like I understand it's for comedy reasons, but I think this is a little bit too far compared to Harley Quinn. I believe season 3 or 4 when Nightwing started getting introduced. That's when all of the butt jokes started coming
Okay,
in.
I don't know. It was before that with Constantine and King Shark.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
That I'm really surprised they went for that, and that's canon. So the yeah. Um
And the problem is, it's everywhere now. And say what you want about not being okay for men, not being okay for women, but the responses that we're getting are very different now that they're doing it to men.
yeah.
Um, a good example is in The Boys, what happens to Huey.
Yeah.
Uh, the response was immediately like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they did what they did."
Oh, with
Two
the
episodes
the
in a
the
row.
bondage dungeon
Yes,
thing
and
and then the shapeshifter.
the shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Yes, he gets assaulted time after time after time. And yes, it is not okay to do it to Huey the same way. It's not okay to do it the other times. But I am noticing you're immediately jumping on defending Huey this in a way that nobody defended the countless women in DC, in Marvel, in media in general that have happened through the same stuff. Like you said, name me a character in Marvel or DC, a women character who hasn't been
Yeah.
assaulted in some way.
And they say it's for story related reasons.
Right.
Yes.
Which is the reason why I didn't have that big of a reaction for the whole bondage part during with Huey, because I was like, okay, this is supposed to be seen as like funny. I am laughing, but I feel like people definitely um made that bigger than what it was because I was mentally preparing myself for it, and I'm
Well,
like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna see? I'm so scared. And then I'm like,
because
oh, that's it.
it,
I'm like,
it was
okay.
it was mistaken identity. They thought he was someone
Yeah.
else.
Exactly.
It was after they found out it wasn't him and
That's when I started getting scared.
still attempted to turn him into the James Woods character from Videodrome. That if you get the reference, you get it. If you don't, that's all right. You don't need to. That was an attempted sexual assault. It was right. And
And
I'm
the one with the shapeshifter, that was unambiguously assault.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, he claimed this is dubious because he claims he knew it wasn't her, which I don't know if he was just saying that after the fact or
I think
what.
he was coping. I think he
I
was,
I
do too.
remember. I remember
yeah.
him saying that he knew she started acting different and then is wanting to do all this new stuff that they haven't tried before. And I was like, this reminds me of a comic where a shapeshifter in the Titans comic was a shapeshifter. She shapeshifted herself into Starfire and then decided to have sex with Nightwing.
Yeah.
And then days later, she was like, ha, it was me. Ah, ha ha ha. And then he's just like completely shocked. And so when Starfire confronts him about it, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I didn't know it wasn't you. Like, and she's like, well, how could you not know? Like, don't you track how I breathe when we have sex? And I'm like, wait, like what?
What?
It's not that deep,
Well,
Starfire. I'm sorry, but
I
for
mean,
this one, I'm just like, okay, you said you knew she was doing something different. You didn't that didn't catch on?
but it also Madeline Pryor, hello?
Yes.
Like what? Poor Scott. I mean, that's the longest prolonged dubcon thing in comics, depending on the continuity. Because
Yeah,
originally she just looked like Jean, but at some point they changed it to,
she
false
was, but she
pretenses.
wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, what that I mean, brother gonna be fucked up from that. And I don't think I think in the boys they are building to something with Huey, right? Because in season 2, he was so desperate to have powers. That so that he could be, equal to what's her name? Starlight. Um, and
I'm
in
surprised she didn't make like your least favorite character because she counts.
she does, but that's sort of a satire of
Oh,
superhero
okay.
stuff.
Good
And I
point.
mean, I'm waiting to see how they land it because I do think the show knows she's terrible. And if they know she's terrible, she's not a bad character, right?
Yeah,
She's just a bad person.
Oh,
because
sorry,
in the
which character? I
Uh,
sneezed.
Starlight.
Starlight, like the same way I think
Ah.
Helena Bertinelli, Huntress, is kind of a bad person. She's a good character, right? Or Yennefer from The Witcher, kind of not a great person, good character, right? I can justify. We need more morally gray women. There's nothing
Yes.
morally gray about Catwoman except her outfits. Okay, she steals, big deal, but she's not threatening to kill the protagonist's sister like a morally gray hero in a romantasy novel. Um,
I will say that for the Huey part, for the shapeshifter, there's been such a divide on who was right in the conversation with him and Starlight. And I was like, I think Huey did admit that something was different, but I also wish that, when they both came together, she would at least make it possibly
oh,
make an apology before,
I mean, I think she's terrible. So in my world, Starlight is always wrong. But on that character, there's not supposed to be any good people in it, right? Like I can give them that. At least if she's awful, she's interesting. She's not just ooh victim. The way she seemed to be. I mean, okay, they nerfed from the comics. In the comics, she's gang raped, which is why I hesitated watching that show for as long as I did
which is why I
because
don't read the comics. I'm just like, I can't do that. I
oh
can't.
Yeah,
so
you're better off.
they're bleak. Talk about bleak. I mean, it was post like it was George W. Bush's America. People were working shit out. That seems like, so like such a calm time by
Oh
modern
my God, the
standards.
comics we're going to get now.
Yeah. Oh, well, the thing is, they're not going there anymore. And I think that's part of the reason that X-Men hasn't been good in a while because they're not allowed to do allegory about anything anymore. It just has to be big sensational grandstanding or nothing because they're
Oh,
they're terrified of the fan base revolting. So instead, we have Bruce Wayne's dad fucking a female Joker in Batman comics.
Ew.
I'm surprised they didn't think nothing would happen when a recent X-Men comic that I don't think it's done yet, but they had I believe it was Emma Frost talk to a non-white woman and say, "You don't know what we've been through. You don't understand any
Oh,
of that." And everybody was like, "Huh?" And then some people
oh.
were saying, like, this is the problem with the whole allegory thing. Like, you just don't do this. It was a white person writing this and deliberately wrote a white woman to say that to a non-white woman, saying, "You don't understand what we've been through." And
I never
I know she
felt
wasn't
so
black, but
bold.
I believe she was Middle Eastern.
Well, that was like that Marvel What If, where what was it? What if Prowler was Thor and they had him talking to two crows? And
Oh,
it was like jive talking crows. And that, I think people were so horrified there wasn't even a scandal there.
Yeah, people just nope out of reading.
Everybody just went, this was a mistake. I need it grown up. And they couldn't even outrage on that one. It was just so, yeah. How many people did this get through? And nobody said, yes, I understand these are Odin's ravens. However,
This
let
was
me tell
goes
you,
to the
yeah.
genre of the Marvel stories we don't ever talk about.
Oh, yeah. That, oof,
can you even
woof.
tell the difference between a crow and a raven and a drawing?
See, I think it's such an old thing that unless you're like me and old enough to remember the Heckle and Jekyll cartoons and needed it explained why they went away, um, you don't know that that's a sensitivity. And I mean, I do think there's a difference between saying something's a sensitivity and it's a good idea to sort of um be sensitive and go, you can't do things under, any, it's a difference between being this is offensive and this is a sensitivity. And I mean, part of the reason I wanted to talk about this is I don't want people to think that women just across the board think it's completely fine to sexually objectify men when, we're not okay with, sexually objectifying women, except when, like in those instances where, and even, Martha Nussbaum, who came up with the markers of objectification, said sometimes sexual objectification between consenting adults can be fun, right? It's a big thing with BDSM, but it gets overdone and comics just especially during the spec market it went bananas with it. And
Yeah,
yeah.
sexy people is okay. Sexy women are okay. Uh, we like to feel sexy. We like to feel appreciated. We do not like to feel fetishized
Yeah.
and treated as commodities instead of people. And that also applies to portrayal of women who we are emotionally invested on and who we are maybe not looking up to, but just looking after.
Yeah, and I think that's a good distinction. Just because the way it's shifted, you really do get the sense that, like you guys were saying before, the gratuitous sexuality in comics was not done in good faith. The fact that they nerf so much of it. Only they can speak, only the creators can speak to their motivations. I mean, brave holdouts like Frank Cho, that he never had ill intent with what he did, so he's not stopping drawing the way he draws. But the number of people who just pulled a 180 so quickly, I agree with you guys. I don't think it was in good faith. What is to round out sort of what is sexy? Because I do think that sometimes things are sexier with more clothes.
Yes,
Oh,
definitely.
you're the same? Yeah. Yay. I'm
Yeah.
like, if you can look sexy with the clothes, you're doing it right. Example, Vixen.
I mean,
Yeah.
Vixen's costumes are fire. They're good. You know,
Uh,
they have just enough Afrocentric accents to me.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
some of the sexiest characters, including some of our least favorite, Jean Grey, for example, she's always been fully clothed,
Yep.
even her older outfits. Invisible
Hmm.
Woman, she's always been fully clothed. Sexy is naked doesn't equal sexy. Sexy is an attitude. It's how you wear whatever much or however little you are wearing that makes you sexy. It's not less clothes equals more sexy, which is why I'm fine with some of the redesigns of some of the costumes. Like you said, it's not always done in good faith.
Mhm.
Some of them I get. Some of them I'm saying, okay, you are just covering her up and you're telling on yourself
Yeah.
why she wasn't covered up before.
What they
Yeah.
did to Power Girl that one time when they took out the boob window, and I was like, that looks terrible. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I remember they did a whole thing about that's where the Superman shield was supposed to go, but she's like, not doing this, not owning this symbol. It's gone. Pfft, replace it with nothing. It's like, okay, that's ridiculous, but I'll take it. I think sometimes characters are supposed to be kind of silly. I mean, every time Spider-Man sneezes into his mask, you realize how ridiculous. And I love that. That was how I fell in love with Spider-Man. He had a cold. I thought that was cool. But
And he has the spider suit with a scarf on. Like that's going to do a lot.
and like he must do something so that he can use his cell phone while wearing the Spidey suit. You know?
Yes, it's made of unstable molecules.
Ah, okay. So it's still senses his fit because I can't use my smartphone in gloves. I don't know how I can stick to
No.
walls and still use his phone, right?
Yeah, that's thanks to Reed Richards because he is the unofficial fifth member of the Fantastic Four.
And
Yes,
this is
would
why I loved Nightwing. Like I wasn't aware of the whole butt thing until like way after because I just knew him from the cartoons around that time, which was like Teen Titans. Not Batman the Animated Series, because I watched that actually a few years ago for the first time. So for me it was The Batman, the cartoon
Oh,
series.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
which is I
Um,
do enjoy. I like my family loves kung fu movies, so like the same animation as the Jackie Chan series, and then everybody just knows martial arts. I was like, yeah, let's go. So that was my first Robin from there, but Batgirl was the first sidekick, and then Robin because of the Teen Titans stuff. And then Young Justice was also the one. And I'm like,
okay.
oh, he's so adorable. And then he grew up and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's really hot and he's really, really funny. And then I was like, I fell in love with the comedy and then how he's just very sweet and all that stuff. And then get into comics, I'm like, oh, I wasn't aware of this butt thing. And they're like, oh, you like him because of his butt. And I'm like, I like him because of his personality.
Do you remember those covers, that series of covers that were based on old like cheesecake art where he
Yes.
was like doing exercise and there's a doggy and all that stuff.
That
And
was my wallpaper on my phone for a little bit.
yeah, it people sort of um went bananas over it, but that's an example of what's sexy for like presumed women or even gay men. Very, very different
I believe the
Very,
than,
artist does a lot of
yeah.
gay art. So,
I mean,
and
adorable puppy.
it's a three-legged puppy, and she's doing it too.
Yeah, and the cuteness, and he bothered to draw him with scars, which
Yes,
I thought was also very interesting. Like what was focused on was very different. And again, like I said, you can't just, I mean, okay, Nicholas Scott did a swimming suit Dick Grayson variant with some, butt peak, but it's subtle, right? It's not overdone. It's kind of a peekaboo. It's just sliding down a tiny bit. It's not, chorizo, right? Like
and that's why I was fine with it because they're like, well, why do this random pose and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, first of all, he also does gymnastics. He's different in the way he trains from Batman. Stretching, flipping, doing gymnastics is his thing. So him doing yoga
yeah,
is natural, and he's wearing
Yeah.
working
Put
out
some
trunks.
respect on his
It's-
name, please.
It's the downward facing dog with a doggy. It's cute. And that's the thing. There's a playfulness, there's a welcoming attitude. You know, he
He's
looks
smiling
like,
and he's winking at you.
yeah, it's Boy by Elvgren, you know, like the Gil Elvgren pinup art, like the door just swung open and he wasn't expecting to see you. That was the whole good girl pinup art aesthetic. And
Yeah, it's cheeky, it's deliberate.
yeah, and there's nothing over the top or overt about it. It's just everybody can have fun with it instead of, oh, give me a break. How many abdominal muscles does he have? Like that was never for women. That was men drawing stuff for men in this weird sort of hyper masculine. I don't know what that era of comics was.
I'm
Yeah,
still seeing a
that's
lot of people in that. Well, I think they were from that era and they just didn't grow up because they say, I want the reason I have my characters look like this, or the reason I want to see characters that look like this, is because they inspire me to want to look like them. And I'm like, have you worked out today? And they're like,
Yeah.
no. And I'm like, okay, you're
Yeah.
never gonna make it, bro. Like,
Jamal
looking at it is
Campbell,
fine.
Bianca, that's the name of the artist that did those Nightwing covers, Jamal Campbell.
Yes. Well,
All
no,
right.
it wasn't that one specifically, but Jamal Campbell makes some excellent covers for the Nightwing stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure who did Nightwing 92 then. But whoever did, excellent work. Keep up the good work. We're gonna wrap. This has been three women talking. I hope you learned a lot about us and about the topic, and hopefully, at least before you get ready to pounce, much knowledge of subject I think was displayed here. Ladies, thanks so much. Anybody got anything they promote? Bianca will link to your coffee in the description box of all these videos, so that's the best way to find out what Bianca's doing. Eileen, you got anything coming up?
not really. I do have a coffee, and I keep saying I should promote it. People
right.
don't know I have a coffee,
Yeah,
and
that's the one thing about coffee. It doesn't search well. So we'll put everybody's coffee in the description box. Thanks everybody for listening. See you next time.